Hey guys, this is Mark. Welcome back. In this video, I will talk about a very powerful action block, a component of the FlowRunner system called AI Router. There are multiple routers that FlowRunner supports as the first one that we're discussing. So let me just describe the concept of routers in FlowRunner. The concept is actually very straightforward. The execution of the flow enters a router, in this case, AI router. And normally a router would have two or more branches for the subsequent successors. And with AI router, you provide data that AI needs to analyze, and you specify a list of possible outcomes. And AI makes the best possible decision it can about the data that you shared. And whatever the decision is, then the flow continues its execution down the path associated with that decision. Super simple. Demonstrate how it works in this video, we will build a simple flow that uses AI router. And in that automation, it's going to go like this. There will be a UI form that I created with Replit. And I'll share the prompt that I use in Replit to create the form. Whenever that form is submitted, and it's going to be simple, it will contain name, email, and the free form text. So that form is submitted. The data goes into FlowRunner. In FlowRunner, we take this data and we pass it to the AI router. And then we will say, hey, AI router, take a look at this content and make the best possible decision of what department that form submission needs to go to. And the options are going to be sales, support, legal, for example. And then AI analyzes the data and then decides what department is going to be the most appropriate based on the content of that data. Keep in mind that the data that you pass into AI router does not have to be just plain text. It could be more complex. It could be a result of a database query. It could be a result of some data that you get from elsewhere. So let's say if you're doing lead prospecting in sales and you gathered some information, you want to pass it to AI router to make the decision, no problem. So it's basically a general purpose AI-driven routing system. And that's pretty much it. So very, very straightforward. And with this, let's start building our flow so you see exactly how AI router works. So first of all, let's start by adding external callback. And external callback is what's going to be listening for the form submissions. It's always a good idea to change the name of your block so it represents the actual nature of that block, what it does. So here we will say form submitted. Then after this, let's add the actual AI router. So if you go to the toolbox, which is available by clicking this icon, you will see the AI router block. Drag it into your flow and connect form submitted with AI router. So when you click AI router, couple of things that you need to specify. First of all, the actual model, and then we will use GPT-4o mini. O needs to be as a letter, mini. Then second of all, there's going to be AI decision request. Before we get to the AI decision request, let's talk about this part right here, expected decisions. So the way this works is that you will provide a prompt, and we will formulate it in a second, but you also need to define actual decision outcomes. These will be the branches that are created in your flow. So in our case, there is going to be an expected outcome sales, and another one is support, and the third one is legal. So these are outcomes. Notice that for every outcome that we created, there is now a connector that is there, and we will have to define these branches and define the connectors. So there is a complete flow, and that makes it very, very easy to actually organize your flow where you know how it's going to proceed. Well, you don't know what decisions can be made, but you at least can identify the actual path of the flow execution. Okay, so now a couple of things that need to happen. First of all, let's get this external callback trained. Once it has the data, then we will return to AI router to complete what it's doing. So in order to train our external callback, I'm going to copy this callback URL, And in another window, I already have a form created with Replit. And in here, the prompt that I originally used looks like this. Create a page with a form that will be built on my website. The form has to have name, email, comments, and then I specified the URL where the data would have to be submitted. I also said that to keep the URL in the configuration file because it may change. And of course, since I started building a brand new flow, it changed. So now what we can do is we can actually go to the setup that was created by Replit, or I can just enter a prompt and say update the URL, but we can also update it in the file. So here the file is going to be client src lib config.ts. This is where our endpoint is, and I can just update it right here. So now it has the updated URL, and we can save this file, and I can just stop and rerun this form so it starts fresh and it will have our updated URL. And now, since the form is there, I'm gonna turn on test mode in my flow and click this icon right here, so to put my external callback into the listening learning mode. Now back in the form, let me submit it with my information. And let's say I have a technical question. And this is just to pass the data into the form. I will not specify the actual question because we don't care about it just yet. Click submit, data is sent. And if we go back to our flow, notice that there is a little tooltip that says trigger has learned the event structure. And if we click on this icon, notice that we have this data. So now the trigger knows the structure that is being sent to it. And with this, let's go to our AI router and specify the actual prompt. When you configure the prompt for the AI router, it's always a good idea to think about it where you specify the context, and then there are some additional expected decisions. You do not need to list these decisions. FlowRunner will do it for you. So phrase it in a way where you basically describe the data that you are providing and tell it what it needs to determine. So here we will say determine. Okay, so now the decision data refers to content, which is what we used in the prompt. And then as far as the actual value, click on this to open the expression editor. And in the expression editor, I know it looks a little different than the previous videos. We have made the fields larger so everything fits on the same screen without any additional scrolling. Double click form submitted data, click this pencil and select comments because that's the data that we're sending to AI. Now click apply. And at this point, we have configured AI router. Before we can actually try AI router, we need to make sure that there are no errors. So there needs to be connectors for all of these guys. Let's set them up. So if we go and use our, let's say, flow logger, since we don't want to send out emails, let's just keep it very simple. So this will be, let's say, sales, and we can say contact sales. That's going to be our message. Okay. And then another one will be for support. And notice that these labels, they tell you exactly what that branch is. And then in here, we will say contact support. Finally, well, not quite finally, but the next one, it's going to be for legal. Here we'll say contact legal. And then there is one more thing. There is this everything else. Okay. And everything else will always be there. So let's connect everything else. Okay. Now, everything else is there for a very good reason. Okay. And what that reason is that whenever AI makes a decision, okay, it may not have enough options that you provided. It actually could be something else. Okay. And for this, there needs to be a way to support it. So now I just changed the label so there is more consistent. So imagine that there is an inquiry where neither sales nor support nor legal fit. Let's say it is like an engineering question, not necessarily support. That's going to fall into this everything else. There may be situations where the expected outcomes that you provided are all inclusive. Like there is really nothing that falls into the category of everything else. But still, when we architected and designed FlowRunner, and specifically AI router, we want it to be an all-encompassing decision so that everything else will be there. Even if you know it's not going to be executed, just create a branch, log it, whatever, have it there, okay, just in case. But in our case, we will be focusing on these three. So now that everything is in place, we can actually simulate it or actually run it in a test mode. So for this, and just to see how AI router works. So now turn on test mode and go to AI router. And in here, let's just put in our model, GPT-4o mini. And then as far as the actual data that we will be sending, right now we don't have a form submission. So what we can do is click expression, delete this content right here, and then type in, please send me an NDA. Okay. So now if we just run AI router, notice the decision is legal. So the response from AI router will always have this property decision, which will contain the actual decision. So legal matches this. So for this type of content, the execution will go down this particular path. Okay. Now, if we remove it and we say, I need help with the product, and let's run it again. See, the decision is support. And how about we say, send me a quote for purchasing. And let's run it again. Decision is sales. So see, AI can easily determine which path that flow needs to be executed. So now if we turn off this test mode, then we can just run this flow and play with some submissions. And for this, I'm going to open logger.flowrunner.ai. Our session is this 63893. And in here, if I go and select one of my flow loggers, actually it is already configured. And now I can just start flow. And in here, what I will do is I will bring out the logger. So it sits right here. All right. And then I will take out my Replit and I will put it right here because I want to have everything on my screen. So now if I just start filling out this form, Joe at FlowRunner.ai. I would like to discuss a partnership deal. Please contact me. Okay, and click submit. Form has been submitted. There you go. The message is contact sales. And that message comes from our loggers. So this sales, see, it says contact sales. So it determined that the sales and it went down here. And that's in the essence AI router. So as you can see, could be a very, very versatile action that provides this dynamic nature of deciding which way your automation should be executed. There are a lot of different examples where it can be used, and I'm sure you will find a way where you can, or a reason, a use case where you can use it in your automations. But for now, that's it. Thank you for watching this video, and as always, happy automating.